when we get into graphing, and it's not going to go away, it's going to turn into parabolas and hyperbolas and all sorts of other shifts and funky things going on. So we've got to make sure we've got this down. So this quiz that we're going to do is basically just going to be a review of all of those things. And it's also going to give us a chance to go back over some of the things that we just did one more time. So on this one, we're going to identify the vertex, we're going to identify the slope, we're going to graph them. So sort of like what we were just doing. So let's see if we can kind of get on a roll here with what we just got done going over a little bit. So on number 1, what would be my vertex? Zero, 7, okay? Because again, when I go to look at this, I notice there's no value in my absolute value with x, where my h value would be. So that's 0. And any number that's on the outside after is going to be my k value, or my y value in my vertex. So I'm at 0, 7. So we'll get that in. What's my slope? -3. And again, that negative tells me this is opening downward. So I'm down 3 and over 1, down 3 and over 1. And I'll do it one more time just to be sure. And that's all I need. So there's just a couple of basic things that we're working with to kind of get the hang of this. Now the next two both have stuff in my h and k area here, so no more zeros. What's my vertex going to be in number 2? Okay, -2, -3. Because again, whatever's in here, that minus there tells me it's going to be the opposite sign, is going to be my h value. But the one on the outside we keep the same. So -2, -3. What's my slope this time? Okay, 1 over 1. And we're opening up because it's positive. And again, these are absolute value graphs, so they turn into V shapes. Don't just draw a single line. That doesn't work well. And then one with multiple switches. Here's our kind of big one of the group. Number 3, what's my vertex going to be? Okay. 3, opposite, -1. Okay, keep that. 3, -1. And my slope is 2 over 3, which again tells me it's opening up. But since it's fractional, what's going to happen is it's going to make my graph a little bit wider than my normal base graph is. And we're good. But again, it just is getting into that habit, understanding the form of where your x value for your vertex and your y value for your vertex come from. Because otherwise, it's just making sure it's a V shape. So I'm doing the same slope on each. So again, nothing going too bad. Step functions, remember, we're just graphing these, and I want to be clear when I say this, we're graphing them like it's just the equation y equals -2x. It doesn't mean it's just a line, okay? What I mean by that is, I'm going to go, if this were a graph that I were graphing, I'd start at my y-intercept at 0, because I don't see one there, and my slope's -2 over 1. So I go down 2 and right 1, down 2 and right 1. If I want to go the other way, I just do the double opposite because I want the points to be on the same line, okay? So I get here, but again, don't just leave it at this point. Don't draw a line through it. Remember, it's a step function. These are supposed to look like steps. So what I do is I put my little steps, my little barbells, and I kind of think of it like you're walking downstairs. You're walking, ooh, open hole, I'm falling. Oops, okay, I got caught there. Okay, I start walking again. Open spot, I'm falling. Oh, there's my spot. And you just keep falling and getting caught by the dot underneath it until you run out of room. So it's like slope, but they're little bars. They're little steps that we're working with. And if your slope increases or decreases besides 1, your steps are going to have a little more slope to them, a little more steepness. If it's not in front, like this one, where I'm just thinking about, like I'd graph the line y equals x plus 1, I'd start at my y-intercept at 1, and my slope's 1 over 1. I don't see a number in front of x. So I'm just going to keep going up 1 and right 1 until I run me out of room. And then I can start going this way. But again, I'm just going to go from one point to the next one and put the open circle. Okay, now I can step up there, open hole, oops, step up, oops, step up, oops, step up, step up, step up, and then I just run out of room. So the steps aren't as steep. They're little steps when it's just going to be a slope of 1. But that's how those work. Graph them, your initial points like you're just making dots for a line. But then we got to add the steps in. This is the part that gets a little scary. Okay. Piecewise, just numbers. Most of you are okay when they're whole numbers. Because again, I'm not thinking about those until I figure out which one it goes into. Top or bottom, which one does 1 fall into? Bottom, because it's the or equal to part. So, okay, plug it into here. So it'd be negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. Because I have to pay attention to the negative that's there already. So it just pops my positive 1, makes it negative. Okay, that one's not bad. Where's negative 2/3 fit? The top one, because it's negative is less than a positive. Okay. Oh, crap. It's a fraction with a fraction. What will I ever do? Okay. 2/3 times negative 2/3 plus 2. Now, you have options here. Options, options, options. Here's the one I would like you to take. Now, whether some of you are going to do this or not, I don't know. If I multiply these two fractions together, I get negative 4 over 9. Now, before I write the plus 2 after it, here's what I would like you to try and get in the habit of doing, because fractions are not going to go away in here. I want to turn this 2 into ninths, so here's how I'm going to do it. How can I turn 2 into a fraction already? What do I put it over? 1. My job is to turn that 2 over 1 into ninths, because then I have a common denominator. I can put them together. Here's how simple this is. What do you multiply 1 by to get to 9? 9, okay? Whatever I do down below, I also do up top. So 2 times 9 makes this 18 ninths instead of just plain old 2. Negative 4 plus 18 is 14 over 9. Okay, that took all of like 5 seconds. But it's helping us to start working with number sense on some of this. Like when we get to equations and some of you are still dividing by fractions and telling me the number's getting smaller. That's what the of calculators can do sometimes. Make us not think about those things. So the last one, where's 4 going to fit? Okay, 4 is greater than 1. Okay, so we're going to do the bottom. So again, negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7. Okay, we're happy camper. And we're going along okay. Now, here's our next bunch of fun. And again, I'm going to talk about this both ways. The first time I'm doing it with a chart because I've still got enough of you that are having your lines start in these random places that I really want to hammer this home. This restriction is your number one priority. Your lines have to both start somewhere on the line where x equals 2. They cannot start on the y-axis. They can't start in some random place. You have to start here. So here's what I'm going to tell a majority of you at this point to do. And then my erasers, I will get to you. I won't forget you. For the 2x plus 4 part, okay, if x is less than or equal to 2, start with the number in the restriction. Because that way I'm guaranteed I'm going to know where to start. So I start with 2. What are the next two numbers that are less than 2 if I start counting to the left? Name me a number less than 2. 1, okay? And I can just count down for a couple. Now if you wanted to use 0 and -6, I don't care. But you've got to use numbers that are less than, but include that number. Now at this point, you could plug this into the calculator and bring up the table. But again, at this point, I think we can do this a little bit mentally. At least I'd hope so. -2 times 2 is -4. Plus 4 is 0. And that's all I'm going to do. I'm going to plug these numbers into the expression up here. -2 times 1 is -2. Plus 4 is +2. And I love 0 because it wipes this out and just gives me 4. Here's why I like the chart. Now, I see it's going to be closed because of the or equal to, so I'm going to go to 2, 0. Make me a nice big old colored in dot. I'm going to plot my other 2 points. I'm going to connect the dots from the big dots to my others, and that one's ready to go. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing with the bottom one. So -1/2 x minus 2. Again, start with the restriction number. And I know I used 2 in the first one, but I'm going to use it here too, because this line's got to start there as well. Numbers that are greater than 2. Do you hear the crickets? Numbers greater than 2. Oh, okay, 3 and 4. And again, now, some of you may go, as you start doing these, because you're going to be like, okay, half of 2 is 1. So this would be -1. -2 is -3. And then you're going to get to 3 and you're going to panic. It doesn't go in nice. We'll come back to this one. Let me go down to 4. Half of 4 is 2, so that'd be -2 minus 2 is -4. Now, why did I skip 3? Am I trying to get around it? No. Let's use common sense to figure out what it's going to be. -3, -4. 3 is halfway in between. What's in between 3 and 4? 3.5. This is -3.5. Look for some patterns to help yourself out with. And again, I could always plug this into the calculator. I could do -1/2 or -0.5, if you may, times 3 minus 2, and let the calculator help me. Okay. But then again, I know this one is going to be open. So at 2, -3, I have an open circle. 3, -3.5, 4, -4. Okay. Both of my lines are starting at 2. They're going the right way. Happy, happy. Okay. If erasing is your deal, you can do the exact same thing on this. But you have to be careful, because some of you, when you make your points and then start to go along, you want to connect the point from here and go, but you can't. You've got to find that spot and start your line there, and then we just lose the rest of it. Same thing with this one. If I'd have started up here at 4 and gone down 2 and right 1, down 2 and right 1, and went that way, I would have ended up that was silly. I didn't even put my dot up here. My dot belongs up here at 4, and I put it at 3. Nobody said anything. What the heck? But then once you get here, again, you've got to pay attention to the direction it's going. That's the nice thing with the chart. The chart takes care of it for you. So just something to consider, okay?
Wait, why would you go up?
Because here, okay, since my x is less than 2, so if I'd have been here and originally with my pencil, I'd have been like, okay, so here I go down 2 and over 1, down 2 and over 1, down 2, and so I'm making all these dots. But then I read the restriction, and it says x is less than or equal to 2. Okay, here's where my graph starts at 2. Less than for x goes to the left. I've got to get the points that are to the left of this. So I would just connect the ones that are to the left. And if I didn't have enough, I'd have to be going up 2 and left 1 to get more points. Okay? So again, that's how that would work. And then just to make sure, because again, this is the other thing we seem to have some issues with. I don't know how to say this anymore. This has got to be isolated before you solve this. You cannot split this right now. I have written so many things plus or minus something and then split on papers the last couple of weeks. I'm like, dang, I'm going to run out of ink. You have got to move the 4 first, or half of your problem is going to be wrong. Once you get here, now split them. But again, remember, the second one, flip the arrow and change the sign. It's not just one or the other. Because once I do that, I'll add my 6. Over here, I'll add my 6. What do we got here? 1, 3. X is less than 11, which is a parenthesis. We'll be going to the left. X is greater than 1. Greater than goes to the right, and we see we're going to have a color in between. Which again, if it's all in between, my interval notation always goes from left to right. Left to right. And I'm set. The next one, at least we're happy, it's isolated already. So here, I can split it right off the bat. Again, I'm not messing with what's inside the absolute value. Then I get over here, I keep that, and just like I did before, switch the arrow, flip the sign. And we're going to solve these. Now, there's even one problem with this one we got to watch out for. What's my last step to get x alone in this first one? Divide. Divide by what? -3. When we divide both sides by a negative, what happens? Gotta flip the sign. And that's going to happen on both of these. When you multiply or divide both sides by a negative to get the x alone, you flip the sign. It doesn't mean every time you see a negative somewhere you start flipping things. Only if you do it to both sides to get your x by itself do you ever flip a sign. So, get here, and I'm like, now I could have done everything in thirds. That would have been okay. But I'm like, we can mess with this. -2/3 is between 0 and -1, and it's less than or equal to. So that's going to be going to the left. X is greater than 4/3, or 1.33 to some of you. So greater than is going to the right. And again, when I do interval notation, I've got to do left to right. I don't have a choice. Left, you'll notice, is way off here somewhere. Negative infinity. Up until I hit a wall here at negative 2/3, use the same symbol. And then we're going to lock that up here with our gap. We start up again at 4/3. Or if you went decimal, 1.33. What's that? Yeah, 1 1/3 would be okay too. Yep, any equivalent works. And we head off to the right forever. Or statement. Big interval notation. Okay? So then finally, and most of you nailed this on the last one. Okay? Give an example of a function that has a domain of 0, 5, and a range of -1, 4. You're like, wait, what? Okay, domain is my x values. Range is my y. Now, I'm going to give the simplest one. Some of you may come up with some crazy creative one, but it's not something I'm going to worry about. So I'm like, okay, my x's have to be between 0 and 5, and my y's have to be between -1 and 4. How do I do this? Here's what I would do. I would take the x values from each of the points and make a coordinate out of it. So that would be 0, -1. And I'd take the two y's and I'd make a coordinate out of that. 4, 5. Did I just get those backwards? Yeah, I did. Bad, Harty, bad. 5, 4. I got to do the x ones first. You're like, okay. So now, if I plot those points, watch what happens. 0, -1, big old dot. 5, 4, big old dot. If I play connect the dots, let's see what happens. My domain has to be between 0 and 5, okay? My x value is 0 right here, and it's 5 over here, and I get all the values in between. Check, that one's good. Range of -1, down here, my y value is -1, up to 4. Oh, there's the top point. Okay, check. So if you use the values, okay, use your domain ones first as your x's, use your range ones second as your y's, and just connect the 2 points. And like I said, I've had people do funky stuff with curves, and I'm like, I don't need all that. So that's the route I would go. And then finally, some of your favorites, solving for a variable. We are going to nail this. We got this. My job is to get x alone. There's x. Well, it's x squared right now. How do I dump what's not in the box? What's my first step to get x squared alone? Add 4. All right. So y plus 4 equals x squared. Okay. Perfect. Square root it. Square root of y plus 4 equals x, because those are opposites and I'm good. Just make sure that whatever it says 4, whatever variable, that's the variable you solve for. Otherwise, basically, that's it. No surprises. That's the quiz. Okay. Now, I'm going to wait on the factoring until tomorrow, because I figure for most of you, this quiz is going to take somewhere in the ballpark of about half the period, and then we can get started on this stuff with that afterwards, with factoring, and kind of start with there. So tonight, I guess I would say only homework would be go back over these, make sure you're good. If there's any of the 4 assignments from the homework check you are not done with, get them done. If you're still getting confused on stuff, keep my days straight. I'm after today. I'm in here in the morning. So if you need me for any of those times, pop in, see me, check out the keys. Let's have these last couple of things go great before progress reports are in.